What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. As the Russian-Ukrainian war continues to escalate, recent reports highlighted a troubling trend. Casualty numbers are rising, and the demographics of those affected are shifting dramatically. Despite de-escalatory rhetoric and speculation about peace talks, the reality tells a very different story. Daily losses are as high as never before, even though not too many people can tell which are the major battles that are being fought right now. Previously it was Kharkov, Kherson, Bakhmut, Avdiivka. The entire internet space came to know about these previously unknown settlements. And now, the biggest loss for Ukraine in recent days is Vuhledar. But the media attention is nowhere near close to what it used to be. So, if there is no more glory for the Russian soldiers to fight in Ukraine, why are people still signing the military contracts? Who are these desperate Russians that are forced to do it out of desperation? Today, let's talk about the composition of the so-called new Russian military. To understand the complexities of this situation, we must first acknowledge the vastness and diversity of Russia as a nation. Unlike many people might think that Russia is just Adidas-wearing, squatting Slavs, in fact, Russia is an extremely diverse country, consisting of numerous ethnicities, cultures, and socio-economic backgrounds. Back in 2011, Professor Natalia Zubarevich introduced the concept of so-called 4 different tiers of Russia. The first tier of Russia includes major urban centers like Moscow and St. Petersburg. Residents of these cities have various opportunities, from well-paying jobs to access to higher education and advanced healthcare. And their choice is very diverse. You can become whoever you want in this kind of Russia. For this reason, the military service for them is neither a necessity nor a desirable career path. It is even considered that if you do end up in the military, your family is either poor or you are plain stupid. Because of this attitude, no wonder Moscow and St. Petersburg people are treated bad by their comrades in the military. The second Russia consists of industrial cities with relatively big population, up to approximately 1 million. There are still relatively good opportunities there. You can find a job if you are looking for it, but the choice is much smaller than in major cities. These are the hard-working people, being employed by coal, steel, oil industries, and so on. And while first Russia is the brain of the country, the second Russia is its muscle. The third Russia is a huge farming part of the country, mainly consisting of small towns and villages, primarily living off the land and feeding the country. Farmers in these regions are far from traditional farmers in Western countries, who are seen as self-employed businessmen and entrepreneurs. No, quite literally, these Russians just grow their own food, fruits, vegetables, animals, and sell whatever they cannot eat to pay their bills. The career choices in such places are pretty limited, as you can imagine, but there is still some kind of choice. And finally, the fourth Russia. Approximately 6% of the population lives there. These are mostly economically inactive regions. There is not much manufacturing, farming, and definitely no IT companies. People live from one day to another, making money however they can. They might have one grocery store, one car repair shop, one bank, one postal service, one hospital for the entire village. And whoever was lucky enough to get a job there does everything possible to keep working. Losing this job means that you probably will not have another source of income. People might work as taxi drivers if they are lucky to have a car, but the villages are simply so small that there is literally no need for taxis. Everyone simply rides bikes. In order for these regions to continue existing, they rely heavily on assistance from the federal budget. And even then, this money is mostly split among local gangs and authorities, because they know that nobody from Moscow will ever care. Because of this, the young men of the fourth Russia have 3 choices. They can either stay and not know what they're gonna do next week. They can try and move to a more promising part of Russia, but doing so makes them experience a significant culture shock, same as moving to another country. Or they can join the military, which is so undesirable by most Russians, but is a step forward in life for the fourth-tier Russians. They are given clothes, roof over their head, they are being fed 3 times per day, and they don't need to come up with things to do. The entire day is scheduled minute by minute for them. And the best part about it, they get paid something around $300 per month as salary their fathers could only dream of. And military is not like a business. You don't need to do interviews, you don't need to pass exams, no. Just sign a contract and your life is already much better. But as the saying goes, you can take a man out of poverty, but you can never take poverty out of a man. That's exactly why you see the Russian soldiers always marauding, stealing toilets, TVs, tables, chairs, phones and everything that is left behind by escaping civilians. And guys, in no way I'm trying to justify marauders, no. These are the worst of the worst, especially those who were stealing literally from their own countrymen whenever Ukrainians invaded Kursk region. I was just trying to understand why would anyone care about carrying a heavy, dirty, smelly, used toilet on their back, cleaning it, just so they can send it back home and sell it for maybe like $10 profit. Well, now we probably have our answer. These people don't care about stealing or people they steal from. It is just their lifestyle. It is how they were raised. Whenever they see any opportunity to make money, they take it, no matter what it is. Like mentioned previously, for many from these marginalized regions, military service is not just an option, it is a lifeline. The army provides stability, a steady income, and basic necessities like food, clothing, and shelter. These are significant improvements over their current living conditions, where such essentials are not guaranteed. The structure and predictability of military life offers a sense of security that is otherwise unattainable. This dynamic has led to a paradoxical situation in Russia, a nation where approximately 75% of the population is urban and 77% identify ethnically as Russians. Despite these statistics, the military is disproportionately staffed by individuals from rural areas and ethnic minorities. Regions like Buryatia and Tuva, with populations significantly smaller than major cities, have reported casualty numbers that far exceed those of Moscow and St. Petersburg. For example, Buryatia, home to just under 1 million people, recorded 3 times the military fatalities of Moscow, a city over 13 million people. This disproportionate representation is not statistical anomaly, but a reflection of deep socioeconomical differences. Military service becomes the most viable, if not the only, way to escape poverty and hopelessness. Something what most people take for granted. Education, career, food and shelter is given to these people by the military as a reward for their service and loyalty. And for this, they are eternally grateful. It is either military or literally nothing for them. And guess what? Putin loves the desperation of such people. He is obsessed with keeping these regions as poor as possible, giving them just enough so they don't revolt, because the residents of the fourth Russia is the main food of these meat assaults and the core of the military. That's exactly why the major part of the Russian military consists of minorities, and the recruitment system loves it as well. It allows the government to minimize visible dissatisfaction in major cities. By drawing soldiers predominantly from remote areas, the casualties and their subsequent societal impacts are less likely to initiate significant unrest in urban centers where media attention and political activism are more obvious. This strategy effectively keeps the harsh realities of the war away from the public consciousness within the cities that hold the most political influence. People hear about protests in Moscow of 20 people. Even a single man with the sign can have his time in the news. But when was the last time you heard about the entire village in Dagestan expressing their concerns? As the war continues and casualty numbers rise, there has been a noticeable shift in recruitment patterns. Regions that initially supplied the bulk of military personnel have seen a decline in new enlistments due to a combination of depleted manpower and growing resistance to conscription. Unlike major cities, almost every resident of so-called Fourth Russia has a family member, friend, or a friend of a friend who died in Ukraine. They have a real-life experience of people they knew never returning from the war. More and more people stop seeing war in Ukraine as a way to make a quick buck or to escape poverty. They now see it as a grave danger, which might end their lives before they even know it. And yes, They will be able to escape the poverty just inside a coffin 6 feet deep under the ground. But is it worth it? Or is it better to give another chance to find a job or move to another region? It is getting harder and harder for Putin to motivate these people. Some even started showing open disagreement with the regime. Protests in areas like Dagestan have forced local authorities to slow down aggressive recruitment tactics. And in response, the government has turned its attention to wealthier, more industrialized regions. Governors in provinces like Krasnodar and Rostov have been incentivized to meet recruitment quotas, often offering increased financial incentives to potential recruits. While these regions are economically stronger, the recruits still predominantly come from the poorest segments. The promise of financial gain, perhaps enough to purchase a decent car or improve living conditions, is sufficient motivation for many to risk their lives. Despite the shift in geographic focus, the underlying exploitation of economic vulnerability remains unchanged. The military continues to draw heavily from those who see no other viable path to escape poverty, and propaganda machine works extra hours to try and portray military service as an honorable deed. But it is getting harder and harder for the regime of Putin to keep up with the same narrative. The society is on the brink of uprising. They just need a leader who will ignite the passion, just what Prigozhin did last year. But for now, until the war has not yet touched every single Russian family, the situation will unfortunately remain the same. The war effort will continue relying on desperate individuals who are willing to risk everything for a chance at a better life, however slim that chance may be. Well, there ahead, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. Thanks so much for watching, see you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.